Uzziah, also known as Azariah, was a king of the ancient kingdom of Judah, and one of Amaziah's sons. Uzziah was 16 when he became king of Judah and reigned for 52 years. The first 24 years of his reign were as co-regent with his father, Amaziah. William F. Albright has dated Uzziah's reign to 783–742 BC. Edwin R. Thiel's chronology has Uzziah becoming co-regent with his father Amaziah in 792–791 BC, and sole ruler of Judah after his father's death in 768–767 BC. Uzziah was struck with leprosy for disobeying Jehovah. Thiele dates Uzziah's being struck with leprosy to 751–750 BC, at which time his son Jotham took over the government, with Uzziah living on until 740–739 BC. Pekah became king of Israel in the last year of Uzziah's reign. The Catholic Encyclopedia dates his reign from 809–759 BC. The Gospel of Matthew lists Uzziah of Judah in the genealogy of Jesus' reign. Uzziah took the throne at the age of 16, and reigned for about 52 years. His reign was the most prosperous excepting that of Jehoshaphat since the time of Solomon. In the earlier part of his reign, under the influence of a prophet named Zechariah, he was faithful to God, and did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. In Jerusalem he made machines designed by skillful men for use on the towers and on the corner defenses to shoot arrows and hurl large stones. According to 2 Chron. 26, Uzziah conquered the Philistines and the Arabians, and received tribute from the Ammonites. He refortified the country, reorganized and re-equipped the army, and personally engaged in agricultural pursuits. He was a vigorous and able ruler, and his name spread abroad, even to the entering in of Egypt. Then his pride led to his downfall. He entered the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. Azariah the high priest saw this as an attempt to usurp the prerogatives of the priests and confronted him with a band of 80 priests, saying, "It is not right for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord. That is for the priests, the descendants of Aaron, who have been consecrated to burn incense." In the meantime a great earthquake shook the ground and a rent was made in the temple, and the bright rays of the sun shone through it, and fell upon the king's face, insomuch that the leprosy seized upon him immediately. Uzziah was suddenly struck with Zarah while in the act of offering incense, and he was driven from the temple and compelled to reside in a separate house until his death. The government was turned over to his son Jotham, a co-regency that lasted for the last 11 years of Uzziah's life. He was buried in a separate grave, in the field of the burial which belonged to the kings. That lonely grave in the royal necropolis would eloquently testify to coming generations that all earthly monarchy must bow before the inviolable order of the divine will, and that no interference could be tolerated with that unfolding of the purposes of God. Isaiah sees the Lord, in the year that King Uzziah died. Uzziah tablet. In 1931 an archaeological find, now known as the Uzziah tablet, was discovered by Professor E.L. Sukenik of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He came across the artifact in a Russian convent collection from the Mount of Olives. The origin of the tablet previous to this remains unknown and was not documented by the convent. The inscription on the tablet is written in ancient Hebrew with an Aramaic style. This style is dated to around AD 30–70, around 700 years after the supposed death of Uzziah of 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles. Nevertheless, the inscription is translated, "Hither were brought the bones of Uzziah, king of Judah, not to be opened." It is open to debate whether this tablet really was part of the tomb of King Uzziah or simply a later creation. It may be that there was a later reburial of Uzziah here during the Second Temple period. Seals. in two unproven and iconic stone seals from 1858 and 1863. The first is inscribed LBYW, BD, ZYW, belonging to Abiyah, minister of Uzziah, and the second LSBNYW, BD, ZYW, belonging to Shubniyah, minister of Uzziah. The earthquake in the days of Uzziah. A major earthquake is referred to in the book of the prophet Amos. Amos dated his prophecy to 2 years before the earthquake, when Uzziah was king of Judah and Jeroboam son of Jehoash was king of Israel. Over 200 years later, the prophet Zechariah predicted a future earthquake from which the people would flee as they fled in the days of Uzziah. Geologists believe they have found evidence of this major earthquake in sites throughout Israel and Jordan. The geologists write, masonry walls best display the earthquake, especially walls with broken ashlars, walls with displaced rows of stones, walls still standing but leaning or bowed, and walls collapsed with large sections still lying course on course. Debris at 6 sites is tightly confined stratigraphically to the middle of the 8th century BC, with dating errors of ~30 years, and number 133. The earthquake was at least magnitude 7.8. but likely was 8.2 and number 133. This severe geologic disaster has been linked historically to a speech delivered at the city of Bethel by a shepherd farmer named Amos of Tekoa. An exact date for this earthquake would be of considerable interest to archaeologists and historians, because it would allow a synchronization of the earthquake at all the sites affected by it in Israel, Jordan, Lebanon and Syria. Currently, the stratigraphic evidence at Gezer dates the earthquake at 760 BC, plus or minus 25 years, while Yedden and Finkelstein date the earthquake level at Hazer to 760 BC based on stratigraphic analysis of the destruction debris. Similarly, Ussishkin dated the sudden destruction level at Lachish to approximately 760 BC. Amos says that the earthquake was in the days of Uzziah king of Judah and Jeroboam son of Jehoash king of Israel. The reference to Jeroboam too is helpful in restricting the date of Amos' vision, more so than the reference to Uzziah's long reign of 52 years. According to Thiel's widely accepted chronology, Jeroboam II began a co-regency with his father in 793–792, became sole regent in 782–781, and died in late summer or the fall of 753 BC. Assuming that the prophecy took place after Uzziah became sole regent in 768–767. Amos' prophecy can be dated to some time after that and sometime before Jeroboam's death in 753 BC, with the earthquake 2 years after that. These dates are consistent with the dates given by the archaeologists above for the earthquake. They are inconsistent with the tradition found in Josephus and the Talmud but not in the Bible, that the earthquake occurred when Uzziah entered the temple to offer incense. Accepting that the beginning of the Uzziah-Jotham co-regency began sometime in the 6-month period after Nisan 1 of 750 BC. Further chronological notes. The calendars for reckoning the years of kings in Judah and Israel were offset by 6 months, that of Judah starting in Tishri and that of Israel in Nisan. Cross-synchronizations between the two kingdoms therefore often allow narrowing of the beginning and or ending dates of a king to within a 6-month range. For Uzziah, the scriptural data allow the narrowing of the beginning of his sole reign to some time between Nisan 1 of 767 BC and the day before Tishri 1 of the same BC year. For calculation purposes, this should be taken as the Judean year, beginning in Tishri of 768 BC, i.e., 767, or more simply 768 BC. Some writers object to the use of co-regencies in determining the dates of the kings of Judah and Israel, saying that there should be explicit reference to co-regencies if they existed. Since there is no word for co-regency in biblical Hebrew, an explicit mention using this word will never be found. In the case of Uzziah, however, the statement that after he was stricken with leprosy, his son Jotham had charge of the palace and governed the people of the land is a fairly straightforward indication of what in modern terms is called a co-regency. Co-regencies are well attested in Egypt, and an interesting fact is that the pharaohs, in giving the year of their reign, never relate whether it is measured from a co-regency. Egyptologists must determine the existence of a co-regency from a comparison of chronological data, just as Thiele and those who have followed him have done from the chronological data of Scripture. Not all of the co-regencies for the kings of Judah and Israel are as easy to identify as the Uzziah, Jotham co-regency indicated by 2 Kings chapter 15 verse 5. But those who ignore co-regencies in constructing the history of this time have failed to produce any chronology for the period that has found widespread acceptance. After noting how David set a pattern by setting his son Solomon on the throne before his death, Nadav Naaman writes, when taking into account the permanent nature of the co-regency in Judah from the time of Joash, one may dare to conclude that dating the co-regencies accurately is indeed the key for solving the problems of biblical chronology in the 8th century BC. The dates given in the info box below are those of Thiele, except the starting date for the Uzziah co-regency is taken as 1 year later than that given by Thiele, following Leslie McFall. This implies that Uzziah's 52 years are to be taken in a non-accession sense, which was Thiele's general practice for co-regencies, but which he did not follow in the case of Uzziah. This article incorporates text from a publication now in the public domain. Easton, Matthew George. Article name needed. Easton's Bible Dictionary. T. Nelson and Sons.